All right, peace and blessings, everybody. We're trying to shine some light around here. We're trying to make some noise and shine some light. And today I learned that I'll never be able to communicate with David Hinkson again. But what they intend for evil, God will use for good. David Hinkson is America's most provably innocent political prisoner. The warden at Terre Haute, Indiana, that runs an illegal, satanic CMU prison that Congress never approved of, that implements 24 points of Chinese thought reform on its prisoners. They also banned me. Shortly after they banned me, there was 3 murders in Terre Haute, Indiana. Robert David Neal, Patrick McConnell, I believe one other man. Warden J. Bell didn't seem to improve the security of the prison when he banned me. 3 people were murdered. I believe it was under his supervision. I believe he probably directed it. He probably received enjoyment when he found out the Muslims had killed Robert David Neal, who had a pending lawsuit against Charles E. Samuels Jr., who was the BOP director. Warden B. True banned me from Marion, Illinois. So I can't speak to any prisoners at Marion, Illinois. I can't speak to any prisoners at Terre Haute, Indiana. And now the warden, J. Ray Ormond, O-R-M-O-N-D, he's banned me from USP McCreary. Let me share something with you. I'm gonna try to be calm. I really am. I mean, I'm angry. Don't get me wrong. I'm very angry about being banned. I enjoyed talking to David Hinkson. I considered him a friend, a brother in the Lord. I enjoyed receiving phone calls and communicating with David Hinkson, and now I'll never do that ever again because some reprobate devil has decided to exercise authority. And there's no valid reason for it. But let me share something with you. There are troll websites all over the internet. I can point you to 4 right off the bat that slander these men in prison all day long. There's over 50 pages of nothing but slander and vile writings about these men in cages because there's a lot of cowards who like to pick and make fun of and slander men who are already in prison. There's tons of websites that say bad things about David Hinkson. But if I come along with my little YouTube channel and I start writing letters to David and I develop a rapport with him and I start getting his story out, God forbid that anybody put the truth out about David Hinkson. God forbid that somebody actually put David Hinkson's side of the story out. We can't have that. Shut that man down. I pray God rain justice down upon this Bureau of Prisons like a mighty river. I am going to raise this issue before the throne room of God daily. And all of these wardens who keep banning me, you guys have chosen the wrong path. You guys have chosen the wrong path. You guys are working for the enemy of the American people. You are the biggest human trafficking organization in this country. You will go down as traitors. Let's look at, I got banned from 6 different people at USP McCreary today. Let's read what it says. The subject is, and I'm going to read all of this stuff, right? These are letters that I have written, and they're rough drafts. I might go with this, or I might not go with this, but I'm just going to read to you the writings that I have right now. If you want to stick around, I'm going to share with you my thoughts on being banned from ever talking to David Hinkson ever again. Here's the message I got from CoreLinks today. If you're not familiar with CoreLinks, it's a prison email system, and it was sent to me, and it had 6 people, and it says you're blocked. You will not be able to talk to these 6 people as long as they remain at USP McCreary. Even if they move them, I can't talk to them. And how do I know that? Because Warden B. True banned me from speaking to Schaefer Cox at Marion, Illinois, and when they moved him to Terre Haute, Indiana, Warden J.R. Bell kept the ban in place. It don't matter where they go. I'll never be able to speak to them again because these wardens are children of Lucifer. Let's read what it says. The subject is David Hinkson. This message informs you that you have been blocked from communicating with the above named federal prisoner because the Bureau has determined that such communication is detrimental to the security, good order, or discipline of the facility, or might facilitate criminal activity. Shortly after Warden J.R. Bell banned me from Terre Haute, Indiana, he had 3 murders. 3 people died in his prison shortly after he banned me. Do you think that banning me contributed to a better security? How about the reason they banned me is because I'm exposing truth about them incarcerating innocent men. And they can have troll websites all over the internet that slanders these men, that writes vile and disgusting things about them. So they can incarcerate an innocent man. They set up websites to write slander about him. Then they silence the man. And then they ban me from communicating with him. And now I can't even advocate with their phone calls, which means that it makes it very difficult for me to get their side of the story. I can't develop a rapport with them. I can't develop a relationship with David Hinkson ever again. So not only do you incarcerate, silence, but then you ban anybody who wants to advocate for him. And you set up troll websites to write a bunch of slander about him. Is that how we operate in America? It's really a good thing we got going on here. They say that I might facilitate criminal activity, an outright lie. Let me tell you something. There are trolls on troll websites that have bragged about calling the prison and reporting David Hinkson as being a con man running a business to make money off people. That ain't true. That's a lie. That's a downright lie. That's a damnable lie. And now David Hinkson has been thrown in the hole and his communications have been taken away and now they've banned me and I'll never talk to him again. Oh. You know, there's a saying in the Bible in Revelations about the saints calling out for vengeance. How long, O Lord, holy and true, wilt thou not avenge the blood of the saints upon the earth? I'm going to be a part of that group. The prisoner with whom you were communicating is being informed of this block. You may appeal this block within 15 days of the date of this message by submitting a written request to the warden of the prison, where the prisoner is located. You should include a copy of this notice, an explanation of your appeal request, and any additional documents or information you wish to be considered. So they want me to go appeal to His Majesty. They want me to bow down and say, please, Mr. J. Ray Ormond, would you please let me have my ability to talk to my friend, David Hinkson? I didn't do anything wrong. I wasn't running a business. I wasn't threatening anybody. Please, Massa, let me have my communications back. That ain't gonna happen. I said, you should include a copy of this notice, an explanation of your appeal request, and any additional documents or information you wish to be considered. Here's my statement that I tried to mail to David Hinkson that they won't even let get through, and I've tried to mail it several times, and they said the envelope was not wide enough. Where's the dang letter? Hold on. You see this? This is the color envelope. I mailed it to David Hinkson, and they returned it and said, this envelope ain't wide enough. You see these type of people? These freaking idiots at this prison mailroom? You see what our country has turned into with over-legalization and policy this and legal restriction that, and you got to be up to, certain code restrictions, and your letter ain't getting through? the envelope ain't wide enough. So I tried to send this to David Hinkson with my signature. And I'm going to read it to you now. To whom it may concern, my name is Rudy Davis, and I am a chaplain of First Southern Baptist Church in Buena Park, California. I can testify that what is stated about David Hinkson on J. Duncan's incident report is false. They wrote up a fabricated incident report that said David Hinkson was trying to run a business, which is not true. He's got a lot of business ideas. He is a businessman. He talks about business ideas, but he's not trying to run a business. He's not trying to defraud anybody. But this idiot, J. Duncan, who's just waiting to capture, are your shoelaces tied properly? You can't put your coat on outside. You have to put it on in the foyer. Your envelope ain't wide enough. There's some people that walk around and do that kind of crap all the time. They just look for little things to catch people on. I'm going to calm down, okay? Let's just... Why would he classify my YouTube channel and me being a talk show host? I advocate for the unjustly incarcerated and publish phone calls from prisoners and run a Christian website, yearofjubilee.com, with a corresponding YouTube channel and Facebook page. I never attempted to personally crowdfund listeners to buy green conspiracy Bitcoin tokens in exchange for money. I never did that. David talked about it. He's talking about business ideas all the time. I don't get involved in prisoner fundraising or legal efforts. I hold the belief that our criminal justice system is broken and needs massive reform, and many innocent people are in prison. America has 5% of the world's population, and yet we have 25% of the world's prison population. We have more prisoners than China. My website, yearofjubilee.com, has many resources making the argument that we need criminal justice reform and prison reform. From time to time, I point people to resources where people can donate to prisoner commissary or buy books or legal defense funds. But I do not, as a rule, get involved in those efforts directly. David Hinkson is a businessman and has incredible inventions that will benefit humanity. And David is always discussing how to develop those ideas. Imagine if Thomas Edison had been falsely accused of a crime before he invented the light bulb. I believe it is a similar analogy of what has happened to David Hinkson. Thomas Edison would want to work with his friends on the outside to continue to develop his inventions for the benefit of humanity. People that did not understand Thomas Edison would laugh at him and think he is crazy. I believe David Hinkson is a modern-day Nikola Tesla. And there are many people who wish to paint David as a con man, but that is not true. I can tell you that David would never defraud anyone, as David is a righteous person and does not operate like that. I am not aware of even a single valid complaint that David has defrauded anyone. The man who testified against David in his phony trial is a known valor thief, liar, pedophile named Elvin Joe Swisher. We have an affidavit from Elvin's daughter that Elvin molested her and sisters, which shows you the bad character of the only witness against David that the jury believed. We even have an affidavit from a juror named Ben S. Casey that he would never have voted guilty had he known Elvin Joe Swisher was a valor thief liar. David or I never attempted to solicit listeners, and David was only discussing business ideas because he wants his inventions to be developed before David dies in prison. I run a Christian ministry for prisoners and have stated on the record that I do not get involved personally in helping an inmate raise funds, as I only share information and ideas under the concept of free speech. I believe David's ideas need the attention of someone who can build his generators and copper water inventions so that humanity can benefit. I also act as Mr. Hinkson's library and bank of information to help preserve Mr. Hinkson's story. I am in possession of all of Mr. Hinkson's engineering drawings and the energy devices. I believe there are bad people in this world who would like to destroy these drawings, so I keep them in multiple places. I have also forwarded technical and medical concepts to parties that need help. For instance, I publicly offered Hinkson's copper concept to John McCain before he died of cancer, and it has been shown to help with all cancers. In summary, I believe Mr. Hinkson and the comments that Mr. Hinkson has said on many emails and recorded calls that all currencies and bitcoins are just discussing ideas on how to develop his inventions into reality while being incarcerated, not for defrauding anyone, but to help people. I believe that Mr. Hinkson has a degree in finance and had just finished reading Bitcoin for Dummies, and that we talk about many issues as Mr. Hinkson voices his opinion. The concept of using platinum came up many times, as it is my understanding that David's late friend Doug had found the motherlode of platinum, and David had offered it to President Trump to help the country. It was my friend and pastor, Stefan Broden, whom I told about Mr. Hinkson's innocence, who then went to the White House on occasions to advocate for Mr. Hinkson's pardon. Note that Pastor Broden had already been invited to the White House to speak about infectious diseases. Mr. Hinkson had told me about his idea of giving Christian missionaries the copper water for free to help in all third world countries. I know that Mr. Hinkson has offered all 7 of his energy devices to me and Pastor Broden to help us fund our ministries, but I personally feel as I lack the skills necessary to build the generators and/or copper water machinery. I believe we really need the direct involvement of Mr. Hinkson himself outside of prison to bring his inventions to fruition. I misspelled a word there. I need to fix that. To fruition. I also hold all of his engineering designs and other miscellaneous documents like a library. I do this because Mr. Hinkson is my friend and I believe in his ideas. Mr. Hinkson has stated that the Galt energy device should be used to back all currencies and bitcoins. As his chaplain, I listen and record his ideas and opinions. Mr. Hinkson has never committed any kind of fraud to obtain money from any outside source. In fact, I have posted hundreds of emails and letters on my website, LoneStar1776.com, from Mr. Hinkson. People have sent in testimonials about how Mr. Hinkson had helped them in their battle against cancer. My own first wife of 26 years died of cancer. So this is an important issue to me. Therefore, the accusation against me using my name on the so-called incident report are a fraud. Also, I was the person who ordered and paid for a 606 number that was attached to Pastor Broden's phone so that Mr. Hinkson could be able to call him and thank him for going to the White House to pass along information on Mr. Hinkson's innocence to Donald Trump. I also recorded calls last December of 2018 where Mr. Hinkson informed him that Mr. Broden's 606 number had been shut off. And David asked me, Rudy, to get him a new number. I recall something about David having problems with multiple 606 numbers. What this is all about is that the prison was constantly shutting down David's phone numbers that he could use to call outside. It is very possible the other number was his paralegal, Eddie McClendon. I am concerned that people who do not know David are trying to paint him in a bad light that is not true. David Hinkson is not a con man and has not defrauded anyone. He is a brilliant man with ideas that could help all of us. I want the world to know David's story, and I should not be made to feel threatened or intimidated for advocating for my friend, who I sincerely believe is innocent and unjustly incarcerated. If the prison was indeed a righteous organization, they would not care if David and I continued to communicate about his ideas and innocence. We are not trying to hurt anyone, and there are no victims. So that's my statement that I had to put together about the false incident report that the guard, J. Duncan, put together. That's nothing but lies and was instigated by these trolls. These trolls brag about the fact that they got David thrown in the hole and that they got me banned. But they don't know what they're dealing with. I mean, they are heaping destruction upon themselves. So this is my appeal letter that I had to write. I had to write this letter. Now I got to write this letter. And then I'm going to write a speech. So I'm constantly having to fight these bastards who are just eating into my time and resources constantly. But here's my letter to the damnable Warden J. Ormond, Ormond. Here's my letter. Warden J. Ormond, reprobate in charge. I see that you have decided to block me from communicating via core links to my friend and brother in the Lord, David Hinkson. The core links emails that I received on February the 26th, 2019 indicate that I was blocked from 5 other prisoners as well, all located at USP McCreary in Kentucky. I was sending those prisoners books such as the King James Bible, Pilgrim's Progress, and we typically send out encouraging cards to prisoners to lift their spirits when we can. My wife spends a lot of time doing that, and she puts encouraging Bible scripture. So now these other prisoners, these 6 prisoners, including David, they'll never get a Bible. They'll never get a copy of Pilgrim's Progress. They won't get the kennel written by Dr. Ken Hovind. They're not going to get any cards from my wife, all because of this damnable reprobate warden. The core links email that I received indicated that I can appeal this block within 15 days by writing to you. The core links goes on to say that the Bureau has determined that my communications with David Hinkson and others is detrimental to the security, good order, and discipline of the facility, or might facilitate criminal activity. Seriously? Your actions are being brought before the throne room of Jesus Christ. Making up lies about David Hinkson and myself and blocking me from communicating with him is not going to go unnoticed by our Lord. We are eternal beings, and your actions, as well as the actions of all humanity, are recorded for eternity. Luke 12:2 says, "For there is nothing covered that shall not be revealed, neither hid that shall not be known." I highly suspect that if I was a queer Muslim imam, that you would roll out the red carpet and encourage my communications. But because I am a straight, white Christian chaplain, my paperwork has been included to prove that, you feel completely at home discriminating against me. You see, God sees your prejudiced, dark heart and smells your nasty farts. You can't hide anything from him. Your claims that I am creating disorder is a biased, prejudiced, targeted discrimination against an innocent man in prison in order to silence David, and I, as one of the people who advocate for his innocence and freedom. As a matter of fact, I believe David Hinkson is America's most provably innocent political prisoner. Can you explain to me why certain internet sites can produce volumes and volumes of material slandering and defaming innocent prisoners like David Hinkson, but when one small Christian prison ministry in Texas decides to advocate for David, someone like you comes along and shuts down my communications? Maybe you don't like it when we expose the lies of government and we want people to believe in David's innocence. You see, what you intend for evil, God will use for good, and there will be no excuse allowed as I was just doing my job as a warden. That's not going to cut it. You and I will stand before the Lord God Almighty, and I will petition my Father in heaven for justice. America has 2.3 million prisoners. That's a pretty good racket you got going on there. You seem to have a good outlook on job security, since there is no shortage of prisons in this godless country. America has turned our backs on God, and you have joined the enemy. You are a liar and a reprobate and a devil for shutting down my communications with my dear brother, David Hinkson. I enjoyed my talks with him and would have spent the remainder of my life encouraging him through his prison tribulation. But you have put a stop to that under some false manufactured lie that David was trying to run a business and con people out of their money. That certainly makes you look good, doesn't it? You are the big boss man who caught another swindler, but you have laid down the law, and now David is in the hole and can't communicate with people who care for him and love him. Well, good for you. You are quite the man. I consider you, your organization of the McCreary prison, and the people that work for you as devils who enjoy mistreating the prisoners and derive pleasure from their suffering. God says your kind will have a time for a season. I pray that God Almighty rains justice down like a mighty river upon every single person responsible for the unjust incarceration and mistreatment of David Hinkson. I personally know that David Hinkson has been abused, beat, and tortured in his prison. He's been in the harshest prisons that America has to offer, including ADX Supermax in Florence, Colorado. David of the King James Bible writes about enemies like you in Psalms 109 of the perfect, inerrant, and holy King James Bible. You know as well as I do that blocking communications with David is wrong, and I ain't about to beg some devil like you to do the right thing. May God convict your conscience every time you lay your sorry head down on your pillow at night. Oh, by the way, I see your fancy resume says you served in the United States Army. Did you know that David Hinkson joined the Navy during the Vietnam War? How does it feel to join the side of a lying piece of valor thief pedophile trash named Elvin Joe Swisher, who lied about David on the witness stand? Did you know that we have a letter from Elvin's own daughter that Elvin molested his own daughters? Yes, that is a S, making it plural. A juror named Ben S. Casey said that he would have never voted guilty if it was revealed that Elvin Joe Swisher had lied about his military record and forged his own DD-214 to be a combat war hero in North Korea. Elvin was called out nationally on Fox News by Megyn Kelly for being a Purple Heart valor thief liar, and Elvin was the only lying testimony that the jurors believed in David's case. But hey, Mr. Ormond, you think I am causing disorder in your fancy, highly respected prison institution and on the verge of coordinating some crime spree with David with my phone calls, huh? Your prison industrial complex will go down in history as being a shame for this country, and order followers like you will be recorded as traitors to the American people for participating in the biggest enslavement and human trafficking organization ever created in the history of the world. So that's my rough draft letter to this traitor called J. Ray Ormond, who's the warden of USP McCreary in Kentucky. And then also I got 2 pages. I may be given a chance to give a 5 to 10 minute speech in a public meeting about David Hinkson, and I wrote a public speech. And so I wanted to go ahead and take the opportunity to read that too. So here's my speech, if I'm given the opportunity to give it, about David Hinkson. Peace and blessings. Thank you for the opportunity to speak about prisoners. The purpose of our yearofjubilee.com prison ministry is to give a voice to the voiceless. How many of us believe that there are innocent people in prison? Yes, some are innocent and many are guilty, and many have been severely over-sentenced. Our ministry receives letters from all kinds of prisoners requesting Christian pen pals. You're aware of Pastor Broden. Pastor Broden went to the White House recently to speak about the role of middlemen and how they cause high prices of pharmaceutical drugs. It reminds me of Psalms 119:46. I will speak of thy testimonies also before kings, and will not be ashamed. Praise God for bold men like Pastor Broden. Around the same time, Pastor Broden was asked by a prisoner named David Hinkson to tell his story to those who would listen during his trip to the White House. I consider myself David Hinkson's friend and brother in Jesus Christ. I refer to David Hinkson as America's most provably innocent political prisoner. The only testimony that the jury believed in David's case was the lying valor thief pedophile named Elvin Joe Swisher. Now, those aren't very nice things to say about someone, but I say those things because they are the truth, and because my friend has sat as an innocent man 15 years in the most harshest prisons in America on a 43-year prison sentence. Any veteran knows that a military service record form, DD-214, is required to prove status as a veteran. Elvin Joe Swisher forged his DD-214 to show an active combat status when that was a lie. Imagine you are sitting on a jury and the prosecution introduces the next witness as an elderly man who claims to be a North Korean combat war hero and has even authored a book on his war experiences. Imagine as you see this man march up to the witness chair that you notice a Purple Heart pendant on his lapel. In this country, our military men and women carry with them a certain valor and prestige that has been earned for their service to our country. There may be some veterans in our congregation today, and if so, thank you for your service. A man who lies about his own military record will certainly lie during his trial testimony. Elvin Joe Swisher told of horrific stories about how my friend David Hinkson wanted to murder federal judges on the witness stand. The judge refused to allow the jury to hear any disputes about Elvin Joe Swisher's military record. Elvin's lies and forgeries were confirmed after the trial verdict of guilty was received. We have an affidavit from one of the jurors, Ben S. Casey, that says, had he known Elvin was lying about his military record, that Ben would have never voted guilty. Elvin went to prison himself for lying to the jury about his military record and falsely receiving hundreds of thousands of dollars in unearned VA benefits. David's father, Roland Hinkson, wrote a book about his innocent son titled A Cesspool of Judicial Corruption. There is even a YouTube documentary with that same name. In the book, Roland writes that he received a letter from Elvin's daughter that she and other children were molested by this sociopath. Now, you would think that after all of this, that David Hinkson would win his appeal. And guess what? David did win his appeal in the Ninth Circuit on a 3-judge panel. The prosecution did not want to let David go free, so they called an en banc panel, which means that all 9 judges get to vote. David lost the appeal in a 5-4 split vote. and has sat in prison 15 years on a 43-year sentence in the most harshest American prisons, including the ADX Supermax in Florence, Colorado. There is no victim in David's case, just one liar who lied, and David's life is forever altered. It could happen to any of us. We have been advocating for David since February of 2018 to make noise and shine light about this travesty of justice. After Pastor Broden carried David's story to the White House, an interesting thing happened. A devilish band of hyenas, jackals, and reprobates openly bragged about calling the prison to report David as running a business from prison, which is illegal. This is not true, but that doesn't stop the devils who take pleasure in other people's suffering and bondage. You might ask yourself why David has so many enemies who want to see his destruction. That is a reasonable question, and one that I would be glad to discuss further with anyone after this meeting. David's prison communications has now been taken away, and I no longer hear from him at all. He has been isolated in the hole for over a month. I am concerned they want to kill him and break his spirit. Our God is a God of justice. Justice is a theme all throughout God's holy word. Please pray for our brother David, and please consider writing him a letter while he sits in an isolated cell being punished for a crime that he did not do. The story I just recounted happens to men and women all over this country. America has 2.3 million prisoners. That is more prisoners than China. Something is terribly wrong in our criminal justice system. I don't know all the answers, how to fix this mess, but I know the one who does know all the answers, and his name is Jesus Christ. Until such time as we have justice, Jesus Christ tells us in Hebrews 13:3, remember them that are in bonds as bound with them, and them which suffer adversity, as being yourselves also in the body. When you go to sleep at night, be thankful for your freedoms and your loved ones. And please remember our brothers and sisters in bonds. Thank you for your time. So that's all the letters and speeches I've written. According to J. Ray Ormond, the warden at USP McCreary prison, I'm causing disorder. I'm a security threat, and I'm on the verge of a criminal crime spree with David Hinkson. But he's going to ban me from speaking to David Hinkson ever again. But I'm calling him out. I'm calling Warden J. Ray Ormond as a traitor to the American people, as siding with the enemy. I call him out for committing crimes against humanity and being part of a prison industrial complex that'll go down in history as being a shame that this country allowed our prison industrial complex to get this bad. And for them in the prison mailroom that don't like my letters, they're not wide enough, there's a special place in hell for people like you.